Thank you so much. Hi, as Dan said, my name is Elaine. I was a co-founder of a company called Meebo. And for those of you who are not familiar with Meebo, Meebo enabled chat, sharing, all sorts of social experiences on the web. And we were acquired by Google in 2012. And right now I'm independent. And the story I want to tell you is probably a story that is typical to many early startups. Back in 2005, this was me. I was a 27-year-old first-time founder with tons of capital in the bank. However, I had almost nada recruiting experience, and my poor LinkedIn profile was still in the single digits. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I had this impossible task of building out this JavaScript team way before JavaScript was considered cool, a serious language. And honestly, the people that we were looking for, there were probably only like 30 who existed all across the globe. And truthfully, Google had already hired 15 of them. So thankfully, I was naive enough not to realize what an uphill battle I had in front of me. So back in 2005, I love networking, and I love referrals now. But back then, I really didn't have much of a network to work with. And so to kickstart the recruiting process, I had to rely upon these out-of-the-box, crazy, non-traditional techniques to be able to find these unique JavaScript people online. And so that's what I want to talk about today. These guerrilla techniques, at least early on, were surprisingly effective. And I tried a bunch of things. Some good, some bad, some really, really, really bad. And what I want to talk about today is the 7 that actually worked. Number 1. All right, who can spot the guerrilla technique in here? When you see it, raise your hand. There it is. So midway through here in the green print, you'll see number 1. This is the HTML code of Meebo's front page. And we embedded a link to secret jobs at Meebo.com in our front page's HTML source code and encouraged folks to send in their resumes. Now in 2005, this took seconds to implement, but from then on, we had years of streams of candidates to consider. Number 2. You probably already know this, but the blog, amazing recruiting tool, both for finding talent and also for just developing engineering street cred. So this JavaScript puzzler post, we kept it up there for about a week. We received from this little JavaScript, write a function that takes any number of arguments and returns the arguments alphabetized, in 1 week produced 300 responses through email. 150 of them had the correct response. It was awesome. We would try to do this at least once or twice a year. And so even though the blog only made sense to perhaps 0.00001% of our readership, we had absolutely no qualms about publishing technical content on our corporate blog for the sake of finding amazing talent. Number 3, this is going to take a little bit of explanation, but see that little arrow over there? On our jobs page, we had a chat widget that allowed visitors to talk with a recruiter instantly. And it also allowed recruiters to see how many people were visiting at that moment and reach out to them too. And so for about a year, our recruiting team rotated through widget duty, where somebody was always trying to be online during business hours to respond to these recruiters. Now there is a big caveat here. So you never ever know what you are going to get when you start talking with a random stranger online. But all that aside, in the first year that we had this up, this helped us find 2 of our very earliest engineers. In 2011, if you entered one of maybe 50, 75 technical JavaScript terms into Google, you would see this Meebo ad. Hey, you should work at Meebo. And when you clicked on this, it would lead you to this secret jobs page that wasn't available unless you happened to click on it from the Google AdWords. And this gave candidates an opportunity to both distinguish themselves and to feel like they had an insider leg up in the process. All right, how many of you have gone to a job fair and have stood all day, maybe even 2 days at those job fairs, collected a huge pile of resumes that then sat on the hiring manager's desk for 3 weeks and then went nowhere? All right, this is my secret technique. I'm almost afraid to share it with you. All right, this is my secret Boolean search list for the ways that I would search for student resumes in advance of the universities. So before we had a university to go to, I would go through and I'd do site, cs.stanford.edu, computer science, resume, whatever it was. And my goal was, before I went to the university fair, to have already identified 8 to 10 engineers or designers that I was excited about, to have reached out to them and scheduled an interview with them, even if it's just a 10, 15-minute conversation to say, hey, I'd love to be able to see if this could be a good fit, all in advance of the time that I knew that all of the other hiring recruiters were going to be at the job fair. This was awesome. And I still keep in touch with a lot of the students that I reached out from the year that we did this. So while everybody else is still waiting to read through all the resumes, we have identified our top 8 to 10 talents, we've done pre-screens, and we've already started flying in candidates. Okay, everybody loves meetups. And meetups are great, but all of the ones in Silicon Valley and in the Bay Area are completely overcrowded. You go there and people are fighting to pay for the pizza bill so that they can have an opportunity to show off their stuff in front of the crowd. However, Boston, Chicago meetups, holy cow, especially for JavaScript talent. You go there and you say, hello, amazingly talented engineer. There is a place a few thousand miles away where it is sunny, where you will not be, your specific engineering talent will not be lumped into a huge class of just IT, where you will not work in a basement with just fluorescent lights, and where you will have a career path. All you have to do is just say yes and come talk to us for a little bit. Don't you wonder what it's like on the other sunnier coast? Boston Meetup was just an amazing, amazing source for our initial JavaScript talent. Open source. Of our first 10 team members, and this is technically, maybe Gorilla, maybe not Gorilla. Of our first 10 team members, 3 of them were involved in the open source community. We hired 1 person from the Dojo community, 1 person from the Pigeon community, and actually one of our visual designers came from an open source community as well. Sometimes their day job, if we had gone to look at them on LinkedIn, was entirely different from what we were hoping to hire for them. So this person, the 3rd person, Mark Doliner, he is still contributing to Pigeon, and he was our first back-end engineering hire. Amazing. And we took him from North Carolina and brought him to California, and he's just been a rock star ever since. So then subsequently being involved with those open source communities gives you so much street cred within the engineering community. It's just a fantastic place to continue to foster engineering talent. So I said 7, but how would you like to have a bonus? Bonus, okay. I wasn't sure if I was going to get to this one. It's kind of a meaty one, but the midterm teas. All right, this doesn't, you get a budget of like $200, $300, but within Stanford, there are 2 or 3 midterms that are known to be particularly grueling. CS221, CS248, and I'd taken them, and around Thanksgiving time, I still get hives thinking about those darn midterms, right? And what we did was on the class following the midterms, we tucked little rolled up Meebo shirts with congratulatory handwritten notes that said, congratulations, you survived, I'm so happy for you, kind of the engineering it gets better message. And then we also, at the same time, had this coincide with a blog that got published talking about our own personal connection to the class. That's your bonus. And that's where I want to leave you, so thank you so much.